Hey guys, welcome to City of Churches, where we take you on a tour of some really beautiful and historic churches in the Brooklyn Diocese. I'm Nick Vavis, and today we're in Sheapshead Bay, Brooklyn to visit St. Mark's Church. Now a bit later, we're heading over to the waterfront. It is packed with seafood restaurants. It's going to take you back to a time when people always ate fish on Fridays. So I'm here on the waterfront of Sheapshead Bay, and I'm on the pedestrian walkway. This connects Sheapshead Bay with Manhattan Beach across the way. It's a couple blocks down. Now, one of the things about Sheapshead Bay, it's famous for its fishing vessels and its great seafood restaurants. If you check out the piers behind me, you'll see a lot of the boats lined up. It's Brooklyn's famous fishing fleet. That's where they're moored. And for small fee, they'll take passengers out in the morning for some fishing excursions. And the other thing I mentioned is the seafood restaurants. They're always packed. And if you take a look behind me, there's plenty of them. No shortage at all. It's actually making me kind of hungry. Now, sadly, one historic restaurant name is gone for good, and that's Lundy's. Lundy's was the most popular restaurant here for decades, and it actually had to close its doors in 2007. Now, the building takes up the whole block, and as you can see, the name is still on the awning, Lundy's, but it's no longer the restaurant. It's filled with smaller restaurants and doctor's offices. The reason the building is still here is because it was designated a landmark by the New York Landmarks Preservation Commission in 1992. Now, contrary to popular belief, Sheapshead Bay is not named after the idea that the bay itself is shaped like a sheep's head. It's actually named after a thriving species of fish that inhabited these waters over 200 years ago. They were called sheepshead fish. One unusual fact about the sheepshead fish is that it has large human-like teeth. Now, they're still found in warmer climates, but the water temperature in this bay eventually became way too cold for them to survive here. More than a century ago, this was a ritzy area with many elegant and upscale hotels and bungalows. They were either on or near the beach. Now at the posh Manhattan Beach Hotel, the great American composer John Philip Sousa premiered his popular patriotic marching tune, The Stars and Stripes Forever. Another popular attraction here was horse racing. From the 1870s to about 1915, Sheapshead Bay had its own racetrack. Now, I'm standing right about the area where the entrance to the track, I think, would have been. And if you look behind me, there is nothing to indicate a racetrack was here. It looks like any other block in Brooklyn. Now, this area was also used in 1910 as a takeoff point for the first ever cross-country airplane flight contest. $50,000 prize went to the first person who flew across the country. Now, about 100 years ago, wealthy patrons would first stop over to Mass before they went over to the racetrack. About 100 years ago, you could see the tower of the church behind me. Now, ironically enough, they would drop these huge contributions into the collection baskets before going over to the racetrack. So, you know what? Let's go on over to the church. We'll find out a little bit more about it. We'll ask some questions. Come on. Well, we made it to St. Mark's. Now, I just came from the racetrack, and we passed the parish school and the rectory. One of the first things I noticed when I arrived at the church was the bell tower. You can see it from blocks away and from every direction. It's also usually in the front of the church. This one's in the back. Another thing is this very ornate railing at the top of the church. It's part of the Italianate architectural design. I'm going to ask a bit about that when we get inside. Another thing that's unique are these lion heads. They wrap around the sides of the building. I know it's significant. I'm going to ask Father Grimaldi about that when we get inside. He's waiting to take us on a tour. Let's head on in. Father Grimaldi.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome to St. Mark Church.
Thank you so much. Thanks
Pleasure
for
having
taking
you.
time to take us on the tour.
You're very welcome. You're very
So
welcome.
I wanted to ask you, we've done a lot of churches in this series, and there's sort of something unique with every church. One of the things I noticed that's unique about St. Mark's, when I first was walking up, there's lions
that are embedded on the stone architecture. What is that? What is the symbol of that?
The lion is the ancient symbol for St. Mark. It symbolizes the evangelist, and so that's why you find them all over the building, actually, yeah.
I'm going to point out some things that I see. The first thing I'm looking at is the confessional, of course. Would this be something that was original to the church?
No, actually, Nick, in 2001, we had a major restoration here at St. Mark Church. We had a big capital campaign, and we did significant restoration of the church, the interior of the church. And the confessionals, actually, we had 4, and we combined the 4 into 2 and made them a more reconciliation room. So as you could see from the size of them, when you go in, they're actually rooms where the penitent can either
so there's no partition anymore? Like
exactly, no partition, right.
Okay.
But the penitent has the option of going behind the curtain or sitting face-to-face with the priest, and the room is large enough to accommodate that. As a matter of fact, we'll be celebrating next year our 150th anniversary here at St. Mark. Yeah.
For the parish or for the church itself?
For the parish.
For the parish.
Yeah.
Where was the parish prior to this structure?
It was on Sheapshead Bay Road. It was a wooden little church.
Chapel?
A small chapel that unfortunately burnt down.
So the old structure burned down.
Right.
What happened? Was it an accidental fire?
It was an accidental fire. It could be candles at that time. They used real candles and stuff. So,
And the parish itself was expanding.
Oh yeah.
So you needed the space.
There were plans for a new church already in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the building was completed on May 24th in 1931. So the building will be 80 years old next year.
And then, of course, the high ceilings I'm looking at.
Yes.
The structure is so ornate. There's so much detail in the artwork.
I'll tell you a little bit about the architecture. The style of the church is a neo-Romanesque. And what that means is Romanesque is with the round arches on the side of the church. The square ceiling is what they call a basilica style. Very typical of churches you would see in Rome. So it's a very, very classical church. As a matter of fact, it was modeled after St. Paul outside the walls in Rome.
Really?
And I've been there several times, and very, very similar architecture.
Would you say the outside as well? I know
the outside, yes,
back,
exactly,
as opposed to the front, which we normally see in churches.
Yes.
And then, of course, the stained glass is beautiful.
Yeah,
you get a lot of light in here when I walked in. It's really very bright.
Yeah, we do, and the windows are nice and large. And
you have 2 levels, I see, up top, and you have the lower level.
Yeah.
Are these part of the renovation you mentioned, or were these original? Do you know?
The windows themselves?
The windows.
No, they were here. There was some work done on them, some reletting work that needed to be done, and the windows were highlighted, as you could see, by the border put around them. And the Stations of the Cross were also redone to make the images stand out more, and they really came very beautiful.
Was the ceiling, that was part of the renovation as well?
Yes, the ceiling was part of the renovation, and when the church was painted 40, 50 years ago, they colored the ceiling tiles in orange. But when we had it redone in 2001, the fellow who was doing it mentioned that was not the original color. The original color was the color of the terrazzo. You see the blue here in the arches?
Yep.
And so we put it back, we restored it back to the original color in the ceiling.
Okay. Was it out of shape before that? Was it pretty out of...
The church was, it was about 30 years before anything had been touched. So the walls were peeling and cracking. We doubled the amount of lighting. We put a new sound system in.
Okay.
And we did some liturgical renovations as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Of course, we're at the baptismal font.
Right, the baptismal font. This baptismal font was originally in the old baptistry area off on the side of the church, which we turned into a beautiful shrine room. We moved some of our statuary into there, moved the baptismal font out into the main body of the church.
And again, the lion symbol, I see.
Again, the lion symbol and the other symbols, the other 3 symbols are the other 3 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, and John. If you notice the wavy lines on the baptismal font, actually if you visited Rome and any of the old sarcophagi, when Christians were buried, the early Christians, their tombs were marked with that wavy line. And what that is meant to symbolize is water. And water is the symbol of baptism and eternal life. Okay. So it's a beautiful symbol that fits right in.
So it's not just aesthetic, it's actually symbolic.
No, it actually has a symbolic.
And then, I may call this incorrectly, but would that be the baptismal oil in the
not only the baptismal
containers?
oil is kept there, but the oil for the sick and chrism. So all the sacred oils are kept in that area. And again, we
is
added
each
that.
one meant for something different?
Exactly.
Not the same oil?
Yes. In baptism, we use the oil of catechumen and the chrism. And if you notice, I think so beautifully, I want to say almost coincidentally, The window here, the stained glass window, right behind the baptismal font, is the presentation of Jesus in the temple to Simeon, where Mary and Joseph bring Jesus into the temple. So I think it's so well fits into to baptism.
And I'm guessing this is solid marble.
Yeah, so this thing weighed
as
several
well as
tons.
the floors, correct?
Yeah, it took a lot of machinery and hard work to get that out here. Yeah.
Is a lot of the history that was documented somewhere? Are there pictures of the before and afters?
Yes,
Of
there
the-
is. This book here I have is actually from the
I was gonna ask
original.
you what that
Yeah,
pamphlet was.
and this is Bishop Malloy, who was the bishop at the time. This is the second pastor, Monsignor McCarthy. But Monsignor McCarthy built this church, the convent and the rectory also, which are attached to the church. So he was really the man who built the present structures that you see in St. Mark Parish. And this is as a matter of fact, the old church, the old wooden church I was
that's the
speaking
original
about.
that was
right,
burned down?
exactly, on Sheapshead Bay Road. And this is just a little rendition of the church.
And that's a bit
It was
more
first
classic
built.
looking, actually, with the in the very front with the tower.
Yes.
more classic.
So this is from 1931. And there's a good piece of memorabilia that we're very pleased to have, especially when our celebration year next year for the 150th.
What other buildings are attached? There's the rectory, you said.
Yes,
There's
the rectory on our left, and the convent is on the right.
and the convent.
Yes, and originally the sisters who lived in the convent taught in our school, and we still have a school that's functioning with over 300 children. And the sisters lived there for many, many years. Yep.
And I know a lot of the churches we visited have either shrines attached or other places of worship attached. Do you have anything like that, like another chapel or other buildings that are part of the main church?
Right, nothing like that specifically, but as I mentioned, the old baptistry is a beautiful little prayer room where we moved some of the statuary, and many people use it like before or after Mass just to spend a little time in there to pray and meditate. And maybe I could just say a few words about the organ.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
That is an Odell, the original organ that was here that was put in when they built the church. And in 1983, the organ in the sanctuary area there behind the baldacchino was put in. That organ was kind of left quiet for a while, and the console was moved down here. But what we did in the renovations in 2001 is we restored that organ and hooked up both organs to the one console so that the organist can play both organs so actually two organs, and they're quite substantial in size. And
I was going to ask you if there was someone who can actually play the organ and let us get a hear of that. Because,
Pat Marvello, I'll give him a call and see if he can come down and play this beautiful instrument for us.
Great. That would be great. All right, talk to me a bit about the altar and some of the things we're seeing up here.
Sure, some of the liturgical renovations that we did in 2001 include the movement of the tabernacle. The tabernacle was under a statue of the Sacred Heart that sat in that niche there. And so we moved the tabernacle out. We used the doors, the original doors of the two tabernacles that were on either side here. And we built that pedestal, and actually that baldacchino over the tabernacle was originally the cover of the baptismal font. So we felt it was a beautiful...
I'm seeing another dome. I don't know if that's another theme, the dome.
Well, you would see many baldacchinos in these type of architecture churches. The actual painting up there, as a matter of fact, let me show you what... This is the complete. What you see up there is the top half of this very famous masterpiece by Raffaello. It's called The Disputation of the Eucharist. And it's a copy, and it's a magnificent piece. Originally, it's in Italy, and it was done by Raffaello.
Could they just not fit the lower part? Is that why?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think if they probably tried to do the whole thing, it would be a little bit too small an area to make the figures large enough to appreciate them from down here.
And when was that done?
The painting was done when the church was originally built in 1929, but it was restored again in 2001. It had gotten so dirty and dusty that you really couldn't appreciate the images. So it was restored when we restored the church in 2001. This crucifix here, interesting, was the actual high altar crucifix that sat on the high altar here, the original high altar, and we used it and turned it into our processional crucifix. The cross, you see, of course, it has the purple cloth because we're Lent here in the Lenten season.
And again, I see the wavy
Right,
lines
exactly.
which we saw in the baptismal font.
Right, that was commissioned in 2001. That was not there before, to tie in to the baptismal font. And you see the wavy lines, again, the symbol of water, the ancient symbol of eternal life, and the four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the same four symbols that are on the baptismal font are repeated there on the corners of the cross. The altar was moved forward a little bit in 2001 again. And that presider's chair there was added. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's original, but that was put there in 2001 and built to the style that the chair would have been, that neo-Romanesque style of a presider's chair.
I like the green as well. That really is.
Yeah, it stands out, doesn't it?
Stand out. It does.
Mm-hmm. It's all marble. The sanctuary lamp is new. Was added also in 2001. And the magnificent statue of our Blessed Mother, even though it's a white stone, when you get up close to it, it really has lifelike qualities to it. And as you said, the lighting in the church is just magnificent. As you can see, we have a cathedral, basilica-style church for just a regular Brooklyn parish. And the people are obviously exactly.
The pulpit is great too.
Yeah, Nick, that pulpit is original. Again, just restored. When you're up there, you can have a magnificent view of the whole church, and really, you can see everyone in the congregation.
I'll bet.
No one's obstructed. It's really magnificent.
Great view.
And looking back here, I see the beautiful window of St. Mark, of course, the patron saint here of our parish, sitting right up there in the middle, right between the original organ pipes. And matter of fact, for 150th, we're going to use that window on a lot of our promotional material.
Okay.
And saying that the church is modeled after St. Paul outside the walls, we see also, similar to St. Paul's, all these medallions. In St. Paul's, are medallions of the popes, all the popes. These are saints. Many of the great saints in the history of our church are up there. And I often tell the people when we gather the children for Mass that we feel so much part of God's family because all those who have gone before us are kind of there watching out for us. They're all watching out for us. Yeah. And those again were restored. They were kind of dark and dirty, and they really beautifully.
It was all part of the restoration.
Yep.
Okay.
2001 restoration.
And then you were showing me the image of St. Mark's right smack in the middle of the pipe organ.
Exactly.
Which you promised you'd let me listen to and show me.
Definitely.
So I'm going to follow you.
I'm going to see if the organist is here. Great.
Okay, let's do it.
Pat's arrived. Pat, welcome. Pat Marvello.
Pat, nice
How
to
you
meet
doing?
you.
How you doing?
You're the
Pat-
music man, I heard.
Yes.
Yes?
He's been director of music here since 2001, right, Pat?
2000.
2000, 10 years already.
2000.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you a few questions about the history of the organ and maybe how it plays, how it works, and of course I want you to play for me, if you could.
Okay. St. Mark Church is very fortunate to actually have two historic organs. The first and the original organ is located up in the choir loft, and it's an Odell. It's Odell Opus number 581. It's a 22 rank organ. It's been rebuilt, re-leathered, usually after between 30 and 40 years you need to re-leather it in 1963. The second organ that we have now, which came in 1986, it was built actually in 1909. It's an Este organ.
Which one's the most enjoyable for you to play?
Both of them are. They're
Oh,
actually
yeah.
both, they're a little different. They blend together, and one of the big things of connecting them together was, what would you have with the delay and everything works out actually very well.
So I was telling Nick, from this console, you could actually play both organs.
Right, they complement each other, because the console upstairs right now is not playable.
Do you play the same music week to week, or do you change it up a little bit?
We change music.
You change it up a little bit?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll alternate between the two organs, and it's nice for congregational singing to use the back organ.
Well, I'm going to ask you if you could play me a little sample, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll just show you as far as the organ. You
There's
have
a lot of buttons.
gallery. Everything that says gallery
Right.
is upstairs. Chancel says is the front organ.
What are we going to hear?
I'm going to do the Fugue on the Kyrie. It's a Couperin piece.
Patrick, very good. Really his
Pat.
first time
Thank you.
playing the organ.
Yep,
Yes.
pretty good for first time.
Thank you so much for that sample. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Pat. Definitely. And Father Grimaldi, I'm going to say thank you to you for the
Thank you.
tour.
It was a
for all the
privilege, Nick.
information. Thank you. I'll see you back.
You're always very welcome.
And that ends this episode of City of Churches here at St. Mark's in Sheapshead Bay. If you'd like more information about this church or any other church in our series, you can log on to netny.net. Or if you'd like to suggest a church we should profile, you can log on as well. Until next time, I'll see you back right here at City of Churches. Hey guys, Nick Vavis here with City of Churches. Next time you'll be joining me here at beautiful and intriguing St. Francis of Assisi Church in Astoria. It's a church with rich history, a lot of mystery, including an 80-year-old mystery that's yet to be solved. That and more right here on Net.